Hello, and good evening, or good morning, or whatever time you happen to be watching this. This is Groundhopper's Guide. This is number 12. Mike, thank you.
There you go. What happens when we go over 20?
Well, I mean, I struggled with the concept of going over 10, so I've just managed to get that to work. So, so we can talk about some of the games we've been to recently. As you see, my number's gone up. I'm up to 63. Mike's up to 57.
The gap is closing a bit.
We are hurtling towards three figures, slowly but surely.
Yeah. We're hurtling towards like a asteroid being drug across a ploughed farmer's field.
I feel we probably don't ground hop as much as professional groundhoppers who seem to go to like 7 games a week because they found a double header on a Saturday, and I'm like, I have a job.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, I suppose when you were retired, it'll be nice.
Get on the bus pass and
yeah. Although, yeah, I think there's a thing. A lot of Scottish groundhoppers, for example, that like all of their grounds are within like an hour's train of each other.
Yeah.
So you can rack. You can probably rack up 50. You can rack up 57 grounds probably in a weekend. So half a season.
So we've got 7 grounds to talk about from this month. We did quite a lot in July, so it feels like we had a bit of a rest almost in August. Just as the season starts, just had a bit of a break.
Yeah.
So the first one we went to, which is at the back end of July, we went to the Emirates to watch Arsenal versus Sevilla in the Emirates Cup, which is kind of technically a pre-season friendly. Arsenal didn't treat it as a pre-season friendly. They were like deadly serious. Let's show people what we can do. Sevilla turned up in second gear and dropped into first.
Flip-flops. They were still on the beach.
They were very much still on the beach. Yeah, that was very much a training session for them. So that was the start. We're also going to talk about a few little non-league grounds. I've been to a couple of lower league grounds, and we're going to talk about Oxford quite a lot as well. So we're going to start with Arsenal.
Yes. So Arsenal. So I'd been to the Emirates before, but not for football. I saw a concert there like 6 or 7 years ago. So I had been there, but I'd forgotten pretty much everything about it. I think it's one of these things when
I feel like it's probably not the same ground now that it was a decade ago.
No, I don't think it was either. It was, but then equally, I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of that things. It was a place the concert was going on. So it was,
yeah, I liked a lot of the reviews of the Emirates going back to like 2011, 2012 were saying that it was a bit soulless, didn't have great atmosphere, wasn't really a good ground. But everything kind of since then, like in the last 6 years or so, has been a lot better. I don't think that's so much down to the atmosphere, but to the club itself and what they've done with the ground. And they had a process that they described as the Arsenalization of the Emirates, where they've made it more Arsenal-y, which I really appreciate. We saw an awful lot of stuff around the ground that was just a nice little tip of the hat to the past of the club, whether it was the big unit Herbert Chapman statue outside,
the big
whether it was the gallery of the former managers. I thought that was a really nice touch. There was the wall of hat-trick heroes was brilliant. Like all that stuff like that. The little Arsenal. It's what do you call it? It's like it just says Arsenal on a. It's like made out of stone.
Outside, the big arse.
Yeah, the big arse. No.
Yeah. That was. It was one of the first times I've been to one of these grounds, and I've kind of thought I actually really like to do the tour.
Yeah, that's the point. I think I probably would have done. And I've never been on a tour, and I've never even thought about going on a tour. But if you can see all that stuff that they've done on the outside, I kind of want to see the other bits that I didn't get a chance to see.
Yeah, you want to be able to go in there and go actually spend 10 minutes looking at the wall of hat tricks, or when you've got 20 minutes before kickoff, or for what or XYZ, you kind of haven't really got time or the space to really look at things like that. So I think I think Arsenal's had a bit of a, I don't know, rough reputation, really, I think, with the Emirates. It's always considered, I think, one of the, well, I don't know.
Do you think it's just because it's not Highbury and it's taken people time to adjust?
It is that, and there's obviously being one of the big four teams in the UK, being one of the big four teams in England. There's probably a little bit of hatred because of that.
I feel though that like West Ham are getting the same thing now for the London Stadium, and I went to the London Stadium. I'm like, this could be a good ground, but it feels very like
there's not much West Ham in West Ham.
No, not really.
Yeah, and I think
I don't know if Arsenal felt like that when it first opened, and because they've done so much work on it, on the Arsenalisation. I don't know if that's why it feels like it's a better ground now, whereas West Ham still feels a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of open space at West Ham, and I feel we talk about ground. We didn't even do this month, but the thing I feel about West Ham is that it's very much it's an events venue. West Ham is a tenant in that stadium. It's not their home. And I don't know. They're working.
You could have said that about the Emirates when it opened. I think that they've deliberately turned it into the Arsenal stadium that it is now.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd actually love to actually go back and have a proper look around it.
We did get to have a poke around before the game, because we went to go and see this. I'm just going to put this up on the screen. This is the former East Stand of Highbury, which is still there. They've basically turned it into
offices and flats, basically.
Yeah. It looks pretty high rent in that part of town. They've got security guards and stuff, so we couldn't really go and poke it around. But yeah, you can see along the front where it used to be, and I think that's a really nice touch. They didn't knock it down entirely. They left that one wall there, so you can kind of see what it looks.
I suspect it's listed. Probably the reason why it hasn't been, but that's the right way to deal with that sort of thing.
You got to preserve your history, and I think a lot of what really impressed me about the Emirates is how much they had preserved their history and how much they wanted to show what Arsenal meant as a football club. I didn't come away thinking, I'd love to support Arsenal, but I came away with a lot more respect for what they've done here, and a lot more respect for their history than I had
as
before.
An institution.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff like this. I'm just going to put another one up here on the screen where you can see the all the players sort of in a huddle around the outside of the Emirates. So they have, I think, Ray Parler's on the end there. So you've got all these former players like in a huddle around the stadium, which I just think that's a really nice touch.
I feel like as a club, I can't think of any club I've not been to Anfield, so I don't know whether that's something maybe slightly similar there, but I can't think of any club which holds its players with such reverence as much as Arsenal does. In that sort of sense, is that I don't know how to explain this and it not sound weird, but you go to most larger grounds in the UK or possibly even abroad, and the star it's the club. This is Manchester United Stadium. This is Manchester City Stadium.
There was a tiny bit of it at Old Trafford. There was like the statues like Bobby Charlton and I'm trying to remember who else has got a statue there.
But with Arsenal, there's the pet portrait, well, not portraits, but all the players around the outside of that, and I love that. I'd love to know what they're going to do after that, because it does look like it needs a lick of paint, to be completely honest. You got all the statues, and I just don't think there's anywhere. I can't think of any club like that, at least in England, that does anything even remotely as close to that. There's a few grounds which have the odd statue, but not to the extent that Arsenal has.
I like they retained the clock end as well, so you can see the like the clock that they used to have at the at Highbury, and there he is, the big unit himself, Herbert Chapman.
Yeah, the absolute unit.
Revolutionised the game. Herbert did. So they paying respect to the history, and I love it. I thought it was great.
I'd love to go back again, actually, on a game that matters. If that makes sense. I know
it mattered to Arsenal.
Yeah,
because they wanted to show that this season was going to be different, and it has been. Like, they've started really well this season, and a lot of that is due to the preparation in pre-season, and
as of
getting everyone to sing off the same hymn sheet, and it really has shown.
And I say, as of recording, they're 5 out of 5 wins. So,
can't argue with those numbers.
You can't, no. So
the one criticism that we have of Arsenal is it's a similar one, I would say, to most big clubs, and that's that the queuing system.
Oh God, yeah.
And the way to get in and out of the ground, there's a lot of congestion. A lot of congestion. I think getting out was a bit easier, but getting in was this.
Yeah, that was completely stupid. And I don't know whether it's because it was the first game of the season and it's kind of like, oh, they got new stewards and maybe don't know. I don't know if it's always like that, but
I heard somebody else while I was queuing say that you'd think they'd have fixed this by now. So I get the feeling this is a common occurrence.
Yeah. I think from that respect, it is. I mean, if I was doing Arsenal again, I'd be arriving, 45 minutes.
2 hours.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah.
Look, we got there an hour before the game, and we went for a pint in the Highbury Library. It's a great name for a pub. Yeah. So that took us up to about half an hour before kickoff, and we got in about 5 minutes. Well, 5 minutes before it was supposed to kick off, and it kicked off late because of congestion.
Yeah, I think they did push it back slightly, didn't they? So
I just found the wall of hat-trick heroes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I love that, and that's the sort of thing that if I could see myself standing there with a pint and just sitting looking at that, like at a half time or before a game.
See what's going on. And
exactly. Great. I think even we was on the second from the back or third from the back row.
It depends where you are, because the back like slopes up in the corners, and either side it slopes up in the middle. So we weren't like in the middle, so we weren't in the back row, but we were basically on the back row of where we were. But the view was great. Like, the view was absolutely fine. I thought the atmosphere was really good. I've heard that as a criticism of Arsenal, that the atmosphere is not that good. I thought it was great.
Exactly. I mean, like, as you know, I have absolutely no issue joining in with "Stand Up If You Hate Tottenham" chants, because that's completely a reasonable thing to shout. So, I could join in with those sort of chants. I was very happy to do that. I thought atmosphere was quite.
Yeah, that's the shot of where we were, so you can kind of see the way it slopes up into the end.
Yeah. So, good sort of view over that part of the world, really. It was the thing I found was very weird was the pigeons flying in. The pigeons sort of flying in and being a bit confused and then flying back out. That was a bit of an odd one. But I mean, all in all, I've got a lot of good things to say about Arsenal.
If it was easier to get in, this would score higher for me. Yeah, I don't think it scored that highly on my scale, but that's because I have it weighted, and like the ease of access is a big deal. So they didn't score as highly as Brentford, for example. But it was really close.
Yeah, Yeah.
And we did rave about Brentford, so
yeah, there's no shame in being as good as Brentford, really. I think in terms of stadium things, so there's no shame in that. Yeah, I mean, if I would very happily watch football in that ground most weekends, to be honest.
yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
I think of the big grounds, I can only really think of one that I like probably more than the Emirates that I've seen games in anyway. So yeah, for me,
Actually, that on the way out. So I was saying, like,
Yeah.
I've been to grounds that I like better than this, but for grounds of this size,
yeah,
I think it's easily my favourite ground of this size. I don't think it's close.
yeah,
And I'm not just saying that because the seats are padded and there was nice leg room. It was an all round experience that I enjoyed the Emirates a lot.
yeah. I exactly the same thing. I think the big ground I kind of hold as my gold standard is I possibly a little bit of nostalgia bias as well, so I don't even need to do it again. But I really like the Stade de France in Paris. But that's again, that might be a bit of nostalgia bias going back 12 years since I've been there. So yeah, but all in all, I think a really, really good ground to go to.
Yeah, I rate it a lot.
Just an absolute pain to get tickets for in
Yeah,
regular season.
it was quite annoying. So yeah, ticketing and getting in is a pain. And when we were leaving, trying to actually just find somewhere, anywhere to go into, just to grab like a drink or something to eat. Everything was packed.
We ended up walking from the Emirates to Islington, basically, didn't we? The Islington High Street, which you know, it's a fair walk, but there was never a point really beforehand where we'd found anywhere that was even remotely sort of like, okay, let's pop in here, you know.
Everything was heaving.
Everything was rammed, so you kind of it took you. That's probably about half hour, 40-minute walk from there. Yeah, it took a decent long old walk to actually find anywhere, but all in all, yeah, I can't really fault it much more than that. Just access, really.
Yeah, and that's a complaint that I have about a lot of big stadiums. It's just difficult to get into. So, okay, right. So moving on, we are now going to have a look at a ground that Mike went to, Bell Close.
Bell Close,
home of Leighton Buzzard.
Leighton Town. I don't think it's actually in Leighton Buzzard. I think it's technically in Leighton Linslade, which is
okay.
Yeah, they're building the wall soon, I think. No, but yeah, it's a really, really central ground, sort of in the middle of Leighton Buzzard, the area. I'll just say that. So if you was actually to go to it, it's a really easy one to get to because you come out of the front of the ground and you can literally see the town centre from the front of the ground. So it's that sort of distance. So yeah, Bell Close, home to Leighton Town. This was for the FA Cup extra preliminary round versus Bulldog Town. Kind of, it was just a game that was on. In my head, I sort of thought I'd like to maybe do a lot of the qualifying rounds of the FA Cup because it forces you to sort of aim for something on a fairly regular basis.
I like that the early rounds of the FA Cup are kind of regionalised as well, so you tend to get some little tasty games between teams that don't usually play each other but are quite close.
Yeah, precisely, and you also do get like a bit of a, especially at this level. I think both of these teams are in the same. They're in the Spartan South Midlands Premier Division, I think. But you might get the odd team which is from the Southern League Division 2 or the Isthmian League, and they're 45 minutes away from each other, but they've not played each other since like 1997 or something like that. So that's kind of thing that's a bit funny. So yeah, Bell Close. One of the interesting things I found about this was that it's next to a cricket pitch, and on the day there was actually an active cricket game going on. So if I ever got bored of the football game, which I didn't, as it turned out, if I ever did get bored of it, I could have just sat and watched the cricket instead. You could just see over the fence and watch both games at the same time.
Yeah, there's cricket occurring there.
Yeah, so there is cricket going on.
There's the football.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but the reason why it is probably normally we wouldn't really talk about this sort of ground. It's fairly unremarkable, non-league ground. There's like one end terrace ground. There's a clubhouse and a covered stand with seats in. The rest is called like all open. Is that it was a 9-2 victory for Leighton Town over Baldock Town, which Baldock's one of the, I've seen the results sort of since, and they've not actually been on a bad run either. So I don't know why they capitulated like the way they did, but yeah, Leighton Town were just on it, and they actually didn't. Baldock took the lead twice in that game, I believe, as well.
Lost 9-2,
and they lost 9-2. So it was just never ending.
I don't think I've ever seen that many goals in a live fixture. I think the most I've seen is 7.
I think, yeah, this is my record because I have seen 8-2 before, and you 8-2 see that. Yeah, you have to. It's the law. I've seen 8-2, I think, a few times, but I've never seen 9-2. So 11 goals. You can't really complain for that, and it was only about £5 or £6, I think, to get in. £5 or £6 to get in.
Well, you saw some serious goal fests around this time as well, because we went to a game the day before Arsenal, which was at Rushden and Diamonds.
Yeah,
Rushden and Diamonds are well. So we didn't bother talking about Rushden, but the
you don't remember much of it. That's why, isn't it? There is one picture from that game.
Yeah, I only took one picture, which was of the floor, and it was a bit blurry. Yeah. And I basically went on a pub crawl in Northampton in the daytime, and they might pick me up, and I was steaming. So that went well. And Luton won 6-0 because it was Luton's like
development squad.
Yeah, they U21s or whatever. They won 6-0. Then we saw Arsenal against Sevilla. That was 6-0. And then Mike the next week sees this 9-2 obliteration of Baldock.
Yeah. So I have no time for 0-0s. It's no time for them. What a waste of time. So it was a bit complete obliteration. One thing that was a bit funny was that halfway through the game, I think when Baldock were winning 6-2, the game was briefly stopped because a cricket ball from the game next door landed on the pitch, and the linesman flagged it because it's like you need to stop the game as a cricket ball, which was like, sure, why not? Was
that a 6? Was it?
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the weird things that did happen.
There's levels to this game, isn't there?
Yeah, and Baldock is very near the bottom, I think, with that performance. I will do Baldock very soon because I'll do their ground because they ground share with Ulsey Town, so which is actually one of my closest grounds to me. So I will do that very soon. That's I'll do that on a winter's day when I don't want to travel very far. That's one of them grounds I keep on my back burner for that, really.
I've got a few of them.
Yeah. So I will do Baldock at some point.
That was Leighton. Not long after that, I went to the Kassam Stadium in Oxford for the Carabao Cup clash between Oxford United and Swansea City. Before I show you some pictures of the ground, this was an absolutely fantastic game of football. Okay. I keep saying it, League One teams. If you want to be entertained, go to a League One.
Played.
So Oxford were basically pants. They were losing 2-0, and then Swansea just threw it away. And Oxford's equalising goal to force it to go to penalties was in the 92nd minute, I think. It was a free kick. It's a stupid free kick to give away, and he just smashed it. And it deflected as well. And the keeper had no chance. And then Oxford won on penalties. So yeah, we had a fantastic night at the football.
Yeah, and so Oxford sort of historically for me, actually, Oxford is my first ever away trip.
Was it at the Kassam when you went to the?
It was at the Kassam. It was back when I think it had been open a season at most. It was back in 2001. It was Boxing Day 2001, I believe. I'm just double checking that, confirming. Yeah, Boxing Day 2001, Wednesday 26th of December. Oxford United 1, Luton Town 2. So there we go. It was. I don't remember a lot from that day, but I remember it being bloody freezing.
Yeah, it probably doesn't help that the end is completely open.
Yes, and I remember Luton Town chanting at Oxford. Like there was basically a chant that went on for like most of the game because it was cold, where we was just chanting at "Who stole your fourth end?" or something.
Yeah, so this is the car park. The car park is basically the fourth end.
Yeah,
and then you've got this is like where the away fans congregate at the end of this
stadium. Being in there,
stand here, and then the rest of it's all open. And I was sat over on the far side here on the right.
I think design-wise, it looks a bit like the Den, really, doesn't it? With the
the left side does, yeah. I guess with this as well, I'm going to show you this. That's a little bit Denny as well.
Or Field Mill maybe is a little bit like that as well.
Yeah,
Mansfield.
But then they've got this big conference thing on the
that one there.
That's yeah, that's a bit shiny.
Yeah. It's so yeah, I have done that one. It was that was one I was kind of leaving for you. It's like, yeah, you can do that one yourself. I don't mind you doing that one.
There's a shot from where we were sat, so you can see that whole end is just, it's like an advertising board, and then it's the car park.
They used to have, I seem to remember back in the day, they actually had like a grass mound. But I think people would just sit there instead of paying for a ticket. I don't know whether I've invented that memory, but I seem to remember something like that happening at Oxford United. But yeah, it was kind of one of these, you didn't actually have to pay for tickets or something for a while. But that's a long time ago again, as I say.
I was a bit disappointed that nobody kicked a ball into the car park and it hit a car and a car alarm went off. I feel that would have been really nice. And you can see the guys scrambling to get out of the ground.
Or you want somebody with a Winnebago parked up by the fence with a deck chair on the roof.
Oh yeah,
that's
the way to go, isn't it?
A NASCAR style.
It was not bad parking there. The parking's free for starters, which is always good. But also, if you're the kind of person that parks nearby and then walks into the stadium, there's really nothing nearby because it's in the middle of nowhere. It's like it's out on a business park with a view cinema, and I found it funny because when we drove into it, just find it. Yeah, there it is. When we drove into it, we got this. So it's the Kassam Leisure Complex with View Cinema and all these other businesses. And down the bottom left there is Oxford United. So just above the fish and chip place.
They're an afterthought in their own stadium.
In their own complex. Yeah.
That will give you a complex on it. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of I've always kind of had an eye on Oxford. It's like, I wonder how much it's changed, but evidently not very much. Being over 20 years since I've been, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when it's a new ground, it tends to not change a lot in early doors. So 20 years, plus they haven't actually had that much funding because they haven't got any promotions. Well, they have, but they've got promoted to like League Two.
Well, when I saw them, they would have been in
National League
Division
League
3,
Two.
so that would have been League 2, and then they went down into the Conference National. They had a prolonged period down in the Conference National, and they've been back to League One. So they've kind of floated a bit, bobbed up and down. But
yeah, they're a funny one. It's like they used to be good. Like back in the 80s, I remember them being like a really good team.
Yeah.
But that was a while ago.
You do wonder, I don't know, why it hasn't attracted. You do wonder why it hasn't attracted sort of an investor, because, you know, Oxford is a city that the
It's
world
got the prestige
knows.
attached to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, the world knows Oxford. Like a man in China, a businessman in China will know Oxford. You know, people in America will know Oxford because, you know, Oxford University, and the ground's decent level. I mean, the ground isn't like Cambridge United's ground. Not dissing Cambridge United, but it's better than Cambridge United's ground. There's a lot of wealthy ex-alumni who may have seen Oxford United. I mean, we do know actually someone who is sort of a Oxford University alumni who went to, friend to show, who went to Oxford United a lot. So, dear friend Brian, but it's like, I don't know why they haven't really attracted the sponsorship. Sorry if you heard a motorbike.
Yeah, that was quite loud. Normally, when you hear like a car go past, and you go, "Oh, that was a bit loud," and the other person like doesn't hear it at all. That wasn't that.
Yeah, it does. Off topic, it doesn't beat a time when I once had an ice cream van park outside my house. That was during a podcast recording.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, they kind of never. Well, I think they've had a few sort of funny owners, but nothing really of any note. Really, they've never got really.
It feels like there's potential there, although the crowd didn't get particularly rowdy until they started coming back into the game. There wasn't really a lot of support until they started coming back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any Oxford United fans. You don't go on Twitter and be like, "Oh, the bloody Oxford United fans are playing up again today."
Yeah, I don't think they play up.
Yeah, I can't imagine them. I know Oxford United fans, for a period they really hated Luton, and I think it's because we were like the only team that was remotely geographically similar to them, and Swindon was doing something else. It's just like, yeah, I never really see them pop up really as a club. So, yeah.
Yeah, I quite liked it though. I don't know if it's just because the game was really good, and we got out the car park relatively easy.
Yeah.
But that could have gone wrong. Like, it depends where you park. If you park close to the ground, I imagine getting out is quite hard.
Yeah, it's almost if you're first in, you're last out.
Yeah.
Yeah, turning up 10 minutes before the end, before it begins, is probably straight out again.
Yeah. Yes, and it's also a bit of a risk turning up that late because the car park's not that big.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to Stotfold?
Yeah, so Stotfold was the second of my FA Cup games this year. So it was the Leighton game was the extra preliminary round. This was the preliminary round, and it was between Stotfold and Grays Athletic, which I have to admit that attracted me because Grays Athletic are historically they're like a, in my head, that they're quite a big non-league team. They're always a team that sort of sneaks in the FA Cup first round and draws against Swindon Town. You're like, oh, it's Grays versus Swindon. That'll be a Friday night game on BBC Red Button or something like that.
Oh, the Red Button. Hey, Bromsgrove were on the Red Button last season. They got absolutely slapped.
Do you know what? I think I remember that game. Yeah. Love a Red Button BBC FA Cup game. But yeah, so Grays Athletic, you know, the glamour of that team attracted me to Stotfold, which is they play in New Roker Park up in not the continuation of Sunderland's old ground, Roker Park, but it's a fairly new build. This actually was built, I think it opened.
It looks like a really big garden shed.
Yeah, very nice clubhouse actually. I didn't take a picture of the inside, but it's it looks like like a little mini B&Q or something, really, isn't it? It's quite a new ground. I think it opened in something like February 2020, so it's obviously not really been used that much since. It's a very new in that respect. A bit open, very windswept along there. It's kind of flat, sort of East Bedfordshire, North Hertfordshire sort of area. I mean, just beyond one of the ends, there was a huge wind farm. So it's obviously sort of rattles its way through there. One thing I did like about it for a ground of this level is that it was a ground of this level and a modern ground of this level, and it had a grass pitch, which I was shocked at, really.
I thought it's dead, but yeah, that is a grass pitch.
Yeah, it was amidst the it was just after the absolute roast in July. So yeah, that was Stotfold. A few minor things that were interesting. Stotfold had their own Pilsner in the bar, which I'd not seen a Roker Park Pilsner, which I was like, I'd driven there, so I could only really have like a half. So I had that and something to eat, so I was all right. It was horrible. It turned out it was made by Green King, which
no,
there you go.
Dear.
But it was worth it for the venue check-in on Untapped, and at least I can say I've had a Roker Park Pilsner. Yeah, it was not great.
Well, no, Green King don't make good beer, do they?
They make a handful of they make one or two slightly acceptable beers every decade, I think.
I've just seen the wind farms.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
It's not that clear, but you can sort of see that there's a big old wind farm in the background. So yeah, it does rattle its way through there. I could imagine on a Tuesday night in February, it's absolutely abysmal to go watch football. It wouldn't be but it was quite nice for sort of a mid to late August summer's afternoon. So yeah, game itself was quite.
It does look quite pleasant. That looks like a cup of tea, though. That's standing around.
And Stotfold as a place was really quite nice. It's like just a little small town, not quite a village, but a very small town. A good few little pubs. Nice little community, really. Right on the edge of town, so you sort of drove through this like avenue with the trees that go over the top. Kind of idyllic in that sort of sense. You parked right outside you parked in the car park. It was a decent sized car park for the level, completely free. Yeah, it was. I always say it's one that I've ticked off. I don't necessarily know if I would go back because it's kind of as for the reasons I've just said, but it's definitely. I've had a lot worse viewing experiences than Stotfold. Yeah, there we
go. Cool. So I'm up next. We myself and Tannoy Tom,
yes,
from the Romulus. He's a Coventry fan, so I asked him if he wanted to go and watch Coventry women play. But it's not actually Coventry City women; it's Coventry United women. And Coventry United as a club only exists because they got pissed off with Coventry City. So, and then they stole their women's team as well because Coventry City didn't seem to be doing anything with it. So they play at the Coventry United's ground, which is Butts Park.
Yeah.
Which I have a picture of, which I'm about to put on screen.
Show us the butts.
There are the butts. There's not many butts in seats, controversially. Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, I've been aware of obviously of Butts Park for a long while because outside of football, I do support a rugby team, and they play in the same division as Coventry's rugby team, not Wasps. It was the actual Coventry rugby team. And obviously they've played at Butts Park, and I've always found it slightly funny. Yeah, it's I liked kind of your write up of just Coventry in general. Really, I felt like you enjoyed.
Yeah.
I feel like you enjoyed this day more than when you went to the Rico or the Coventry.
Yeah, the Rico is just a ball ache to get to, whereas going to a ground that's actually in the middle of Coventry means you can go and do Coventry things. So we went to the Coventry City pub, the Sky Blue Tavern, which has incredible murals on the outside. Just incredible.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
Look at this.
Is that the player who got lost at sea or something?
Yeah. So, yeah, Keith Houchin, who scored the winner in the cup final for Coventry, they've drawn him sort of drowning. By the looks of it, it's a very strange. There's a load of rolling seas all the way around the outside of the building. It's very strange. And we got to go into a little pub which is just over the road from Butts Park. I will show you the view from the pub's beer garden. That's Butts Park.
Oh, fantastic.
Over there with housing in the background. So we were in that pub, and also we saw a really big dog.
There's a big dog, and there's one by the door as well. Tom is the big dog.
Tom is the big dog. Tannoy Tom. So yeah, we had a really nice day out, and got back quite late because we went to the Sky Blue Tavern after the game and watched the Man City Newcastle game, which was a banger, and basically sampled all the beers that they had in there. So that was fun. Oh, and the food was great as well. They did they have it's like an Indian restaurant, the Sky Blue Tavern, but they also do bar snacky kind of stuff. So you can get
sounds like Coventry's Champies.
Oh, it's brilliant. So you could get loaded fries, but so it's chips on the bottom, but it's covered in tikka masala.
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking about it now. I'm going I need to go back to the Sky Blue Tavern to have some more of them.
I've not done Coventry yet, so we'll have to go back.
Oh yeah. We'll go to Butts Park.
Butts Park.
The only thing that wound me up about Butts Park, and it wasn't that I missed the goal because I was having a slash. It's the rugby markings on the pitch, and the goals on wheels, and all that business. And you can't walk around the pitch.
Outside.
Two sides are blocked off. There's the dugout in one side, and you can't walk past that. And then you can't go to the one end. Behind the one end, you just can't go there at all.
Okay.
So there was a lot of weird rules and regulations. Also, they had no card reader. So when you went in, there's no card reader, so you have to pay cash to get in. But then when you go into the bar, it's a card only.
They only have one for the entire stadium.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's there's only one. It's in the bar, so you have to pay cash to get in. So that was a bit strange. But yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
I've always in my head, I've always thought that I don't say when Coventry City get kicked out of their ground again. I suspect they probably will end up at Butts Park eventually. And I'll be honest, if I was Coventry City, I'd be saying, George, should we just knock this on the head? We're obviously not wanted in the Rico. I'd be speaking to the Coventry rugby team and thinking, let's do some business because it can't be sustainable. Coventry City, I feel sorry for, but they've been kicked out of that ground bloody 3 times now.
Yeah, I think the problem is that Butts Park is small.
It is small.
One stand. So the stand that I showed you the picture of, that's the stand that's on the side. There's no other stands. You get about 12,000 maybe in there.
Looking at the footprint of it,
they do 30,000 people at the Rico. So,
I mean, looking at the footprint of Butts Park, it's I think if you was clever with your stands, you could probably. There's one end you could definitely build in the. There's one. I think you could build actually a half decent ground looking from above. And this is me who I don't know how to build a football stadium, but if you was creative with your stands, I think you could build a sustainable ground. And I think if you could build something that was 16,000 for Coventry City, I'd rather live there than be in a tenant in a ground that doesn't want you, because they know where they know where their bread's buttered, because it's bloody it's Wasps Town now, isn't it?
The problem that you've got there is they do have a lot of fans.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at what their average attendance is.
I can just see them ending up there eventually.
So Coventry's average attendance, that's average, is 18,913. I've actually done that from this season, so that's only one game. Last season was higher. So you're looking at they need 20,000 as a bare minimum, really.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's just not big enough. The location's great though. Butts Park's brilliant. It's just right in the middle of Coventry. You can have a nice little pleasant stroll there. Go in the Sky Blue Tavern.
Yeah, I just think eventually they will end up there. Or they build something new. But
yeah, they're more likely to get a new ground. But then that was the new ground. We're going off the beaten track here. Let's haul it back in.
Speculating on Coventry's horrible landlords.
So the most recent game I went to was Plymouth Argyle. They were playing Bolton Wanderers. That's the most recent game I went to. So Plymouth, I didn't know much about before I went there. I just knew it was so far away that I felt I needed to tick it off.
Yeah,
when I had an available weekend. So I was free. My wife was free. We drove down there for the weekend. We went and stayed in a hotel. We went and had a walk around and looked at the waterfront and the lighthouse and all the gubbins that you get along with the seaside town. It was nice, a nice place. One thing you get in Plymouth a lot of is hills, and Home Park, home of Plymouth Argyle, is on a whopping great big hill. So there is my wife on top of this hill. In the background, you see a little pointy tower there.
Yep.
That we started sort of behind that, and then we had to walk all the way up here. Perspective-wise, it actually doesn't show how steep that is. But that is a whopping great big hill that we climbed up. So that was fun. This is the ground. From the outside, I think this Mayflower Grandstand looks like an absolute corker. And I love the Superstore, the way they've used the building there, and the turnstiles a little bit further along. That white and green on there is just it's pretty. It's real pretty.
It might just be the way they shoot it on telly, but in my head, Home Park was always a modern ground.
Well, this is the side I think the TV cameras are on, and the other side of the ground is here. They've got scaffolding up the outside of it, but that's the end. That's the home end.
Yeah.
Then this is us queuing to get in the other part of the ground. That's the rest of it. So all of this is all new, all the way around the three sides is all new. And then over there, that's the Mayflower. That's the grandstand. Right. So that's like a proper old stand that's had a little bit of work done in it, but not to the degree of the rest of it. So you can see the poles that are still in place in that old grandstand. So I deliberately put myself this side so I could look at it to see what it looked like. But I was also tempted to get a ticket actually in the grandstand, because that is a proper stand now.
Yeah. I think I've watched Plymouth on TV a few times, because obviously they're a team that's existed in the same sort of area as Luton, so I've always been sort of aware of them. But it must just be they must put the gantry in the Mayflower then.
I think it is. Yeah, I couldn't see it, but I think it's at the top. because I watched some footage of the game and I think it was from the other side. I could be wrong. But yeah, that Mayflower Grandstand is an absolute corking stand, and I loved all the stuff around the superstore and all that with the turnstiles. Looked really nice. The queuing and stuff wasn't very organised.
Yeah.
That seems to be a running theme. They had like a search area that you had to go through before you could even start queuing to get in. So everyone has to go through this bottleneck search area. Then you have to queue again to get in through the turnstile. So I'm not convinced they did a good job of that. And again, like with Arsenal, I heard somebody complaining about it and saying, I can't believe they haven't fixed this yet. So it was a case of like, it's still happening.
They're aware there's a problem, and yet they probably don't know what to do. Or the local police has enforced something, or
I don't know. I mean, it was a very passionate crowd. The Plymouth fans were really on it for the whole game. And before the match, like the Bolton fans had to go past this because they had to go through the same search area as us, but they were then led all the way past, like with police on that side. So there's a little dinky barrier in the way. And as they're walking past, there's all this abuse flying backwards and forwards with the Bolton fans like yelling at people. And it just all seemed a bit out of place. I don't know. Just felt a bit weird. But then Plymouth, for their support, I thought was outstanding. But if you look at the, I've got a shot here. You can see this is where the home end is. These green and white shirts, literally everywhere. I think it's the largest percentage of fans I've seen wearing replica shirts in any ground I've ever been to. It was really, really high.
I think, especially in the UK, it's always there is a slight feeling that, maybe at least in the south where I live, there's certainly a feeling that you kind of don't wear the colours because there's, well, one, for violence, but number two, it's kind of like seen as a bit juvenile, maybe. But I suppose really down in Plymouth, it's a long way from anything. Like
they
make their own.
They don't really have a lot of local rivalry apart from Exeter.
Exeter and Torquay. Really.
And Exeter, I didn't realise this until we went down there. It's like an hour's drive from Plymouth.
Yeah, they're not really local.
It's all so spread out down in that, like Devon and into Cornwall. Like everything's like miles apart from each other. Whereas, like you look at, say, Cheltenham and Gloucester is about, well, probably less than 10 miles apart. They're really close together. Whereas this local rivalry, Plymouth and Exeter, and it's an hour's drive.
Yeah, Torquay's probably more close than Exeter.
It probably is, yeah. But that's the rivalry, isn't it? Plymouth and Exeter. But yeah, had a really good time at the game. Thought the Plymouth fans were great. It was a good game. Bolton probably should have won. They played some really good football and just got done a couple of times on the break. So FM'd a little bit. Yeah, I looked at the stats afterwards, and they definitely got done for possession. But yeah, you got to take your chances in this game. Again, another League One ground, another good game that I saw there. So I feel like it's pretty consistent.
There's a pattern emerging there.
Yeah, I believe so. And here's a picture of a lighthouse.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, never been to Plymouth. I've been down to Cornwall a few times, but never been down to Plymouth.
I've never been. And part of the joy of doing like the 92 and going and ground hopping is going to places that I've never been before. Just
even if it's for 2 hours.
Yeah, and yeah, we were down there for like a day and a half, and it was nice. It was a nice little outing. Kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, interesting that. Not one I've done. I'd like to. I will obviously have to do it eventually, but unless they get relegated.
The 92, you've got to tick that one off. I don't think they're going to go down anytime soon.
No, exactly. Right, I think the last one is me, isn't it?
It is. It's Hendon.
Yes, from this week, Bank Holiday Monday. I was actually planning. I'd had 2 games that I'd had to change my mind on. So the first game I'd planned to do was I plan to do Millwall on Saturday because I hadn't done it, and obviously you've done it, so it was just a quick one to do. But then I managed to get as you can tell, managed to get into the Barbers on Saturday afternoon, so had to cancel that. The other game I planned to do was Hertford Town on Monday against somebody, I can't remember who it was. But their game got called off because effectively on Saturday in a game against AFC Dunstable, one of their players had a cardiac event.
Oh shit!
Yes. But thankfully, being at AFC Dunstable, their clubhouse is literally 10 meters from the pitch, and they have a defibrillator. So thankfully, the quick thinking of one or two of the players and some of the people in the management staff then saved the lad's life. So that game the game on Monday was called off. So that's number 2 games I've not been able to do this past weekend. But the next best option for me was Hendon, which is in very North London, kind of on the border between London and Hertfordshire, really. It's one of the first sort of, if you're coming from the north on Thames, I think it's probably the first bit where you feel like you're actually in London. Bit of a trek to the ground. If you go on Google Maps, so you get off at Hendon, you walk through down a little mini high street, and then you go down sort of a residential road, and then you end up on this foresty road, and then it tells you to go along this pathway. And on Google Maps, it kind of looks like, okay, it's just kind of a little through this park you have to cut through, and then you're at the ground. No, this pathway, it's walking through a forest with no path. It's literally there is a journey. There you go. There was a thread I did of the journey to that ground, but you walk through this forest. So this is
a forest.
No, that's not it. You go a little bit further along. It's where it veers off the road here, alongside this estate.
Right. Okay.
That path was it was straight, but you're walking through dense forest. You're ducking under bushes. You're ducking through bushes. You're ducking under branches across the top. There's I did one turn. I ended up at somebody's gate, and it was disorientating. I wouldn't want to be going through there at 6 o'clock after a winter's kickoff, because you'd be walking through pitch black. There was no lighting. There you go.
That's someone's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And also, there was never ever any sign of anybody going to that game, and I feel like I must be the only person who's ever used that route, because I didn't see anybody else using it. Even coming out of the Book Pit game, nobody decided to go there that way. So I don't know what happened there. But yeah, once we got to the ground, the way I'd describe it is it's like watching a football game in an allotment. There was a lot of sort of foliage around the ground. There was a nice little garden, really nice manicured lawns. What's that?
So I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, I can immediately tell that I don't like it.
You don't like it?
It's a plastic pitch, and
that is a problem. It is a plastic pitch, and it's got goals on wheels. There's a picture on the next. There was this one little tiny stand which is called the Bedford End. So it's not that one; it's next to it. I think.
Right, okay.
You might have to. That was quite cool. There was a free football programs stand.
I'll have to locate the.
Yes, the next one.
Oh, okay. There it is. I got it.
So yeah, there was this thing. So it was this was just a bunch of old fellas sitting in deck chairs in a potting shed. That was kind of fun. I don't know. I kind of was like, that actually looks like a really nice place to watch the game, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to go just pull up a chair next to them.
Yeah.
There was this garden where
I've just seen the lot.
Yeah, there was a garden.
What's happening there?
Yeah, so there was that sort of garden. Yeah, it was a nice place to watch a game in the sense that it was very green. On one end of the pitch, you could see like the roof of there's quite a large Gurdwara nearby, and then at the other end you could see the Wembley arches. So you kind of there you go, you can see that there. So there's the Gurdwara, them little white tips there. You can see, but you're in quite a nice park. And as I say, I think the next picture should be the Wembley arches. So yeah, you can see them from that end. But yeah, it was one that's been ticked off. I'm aiming to, over the next year or so, I'm aiming to do most of the London grounds, because once I've done all of those, I kind of don't need to worry about them as much because they don't tend to build new grounds in London. So it was one that I managed to tick off, and it was quite an easy one to do for me, but it was a bit of an adventure get in there and back. One thing I would say is that it was Hendon versus Metropolitan Police FC, which for many reasons at the moment, won't go into them. A bit of a heelish team, but their goalkeeper was I don't want to single him out, but he's probably the most gobbiest goalkeeper I've ever seen in my life. He was gobs off the entire game. He celebrated a goal like he'd won the World Cup, and it was like they'd pulled it back 2-1. It was just unnecessarily brash.
It sounds
and
obnoxious.
Yeah, he was very obnoxious. He was giving it back to like the fans the whole game, and it was like, what's the point? You play for Met Police FC. Like, what's the big deal? He was winding everybody up, and to be honest, towards the end of the game, I actually kind of did enjoy watching him, because he was just, every single time he did anything, he was pissing off everybody. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, oh man, it's I wrote a letter to the Independent Police Complaints Commission about him. But
your goalkeeper's a dickhead.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was a 3-2 win as well. So then it was a final whistle, and he's like, goes like this. He slides on his knees, and he's like, yes, 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 like shouting, screaming. And I'm like, again, you play for Met Police. You're not. It was the third game of the season. It was the third game of the season against Hendon. You're celebrating like you won the Champions League. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't deal with him as my goalkeeper. He wasn't even that good. He let 2 goals in.
I know we're running over slightly, but I kind of want to talk about Hendon's badge.
Yes, the sheep with the England.
Why?
I get the impression at one point, because
why is a sheep waving a flag? He hasn't got like a hand to hold. It's a hoof.
I have no sort of knowledge of it, but I get the impression at one point that field had sheep in it, and that's probably what, I don't know. It is a funny
patriotic sheep,
an EDL sheep.
It's awful. That's if we did like worst badge of the season in like.
I don't know if it's better or worse than Kempston Rovers.
I don't know. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember the Worcester Raiders one where they just stole the Worcester. Although they've changed their badge now, so yeah, it's a funny thing. So yeah, I'm now.
Our church's badge is Palmer, so
yeah. So yeah,
well, not our church. Fairfield Villa is
Fairfield Villa, yeah.
Palmer.
Well, I always say Kempston Rovers is a funny badge because it's got a walnut on it. Don't know why. Just got a walnut.
Oh yeah, it's just a red circle with a walnut in the middle.
It's like a badge from the Beano. Beano Town Rovers. I
was going to show you, but like the thing's not loading, and also we are rapidly heading off the beaten path there, and we're going to have to stop.
We're so far off the beaten path. We're heading towards Hendon's ground. Yeah.
Sorry, I can see it, so I'm going to have to share it there. There it is.
I've not done Kempston yet, so
That's
maybe it's
terrible.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Groundhoppers Guide. We'll be back in about a month with number 13. I don't know what my plans are, to be honest.
I have one game booked. Well, actually, possibly one next weekend. But I do have one game booked at the end of September. I'll be going to Austria, and I'll be seeing Austria versus Croatia in the Untitled Stadium in Vienna, which it's a tick in my sort of big UEFA game sort of column. But that's why it's a game that sort of fell into a schedule I was sort of working to anyway.
Yeah, I have a small issue that my brothers are coming over from the States to visit me. I haven't seen them in years because of COVID, and I just don't think any football is going to happen. So
yeah,
we might do another one of these in a month, and it'd be like, so Arn, where have you been? And I'll be like, oh, I'm still on 63 grounds. It's gone well.
I'm planning to bump up my numbers with some Berserk Liga games when I go to Oberhausen at the end of the month. Go to see teams like Sarajevo, Oberhausen second team play against some other teams. I don't know. I've discovered Fußball.de, which has basically every fixture in Germany, which is very useful. So it means I'm going to try and get some numbers. I think I could be. I'll be at least above 60. I think by the time the next record. So yeah,
I'll probably be on 63, maybe 64. I might squeak a game in somewhere.
Yeah.
So until then, smash that like button, help us out, and we'll be coming at you with some more delicious content in about a month.
Yeah.
Until then,
see you then.
Bye-bye.